Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Steel City Underground WTF podcast. My name is Terry Fletcher. It is week 10, and this week, boy, do we have a lot to cover. So first of all, I like the saying, no practice, no picks, no problem. And that would be for Big Ben Roethlisberger. He did not have any practice this week. He only had virtual meetings and walkthroughs, little texting. Even his virtual meetings didn't have sound, he said, watching the practices. So he had to ask questions, and he could not have had a better game. So between his 333 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, I don't know about you guys, but I've been thinking of Ben as the comeback player of the year, but I'd like to hear him in the MVP conversation. I mean, with how Russell Wilson's been playing lately, with having all of those interceptions in the last couple of games, he's had 4 and not winning games. And they've kind of lost favor with him. I realize they've put Aaron Rodgers, and they always talk about Tom Brady, even after his terrible game with against New Orleans. But let's just talk about Big Ben. I think Big Ben and Kyler Murray, I think they need to be up there. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes. His mom would say, WTF, Terry, if I called him Pat. But it's just crazy to me that they never put Ben in that conversation. So for me, I think he needs to be in there. But let's take a look at what's happening around the league from a what the football perspective before we get into what happened in our Steeler game that still has me just very excited, being 9-0. So during the Lions game, and they were playing the Washington football team, and I'm so happy for Alex Smith getting back and being a starter. But the Lions won 30-27 on a last-minute field goal, so I was kind of bummed about that because I really wanted Alex to get his win. But here is the WTF. At the end of on the Monday Night Football game, at the end of the screen, so at the bottom, the ticker tape, they were putting something across the bottom that said that Matthew Stafford was 17th on the all-time list of passing yards against Joe Montana. But who cares? It's not even top 10. Matthew Stafford hasn't won anything. And I'm just like, and you're putting he's 17th on something and you're trying to compare him to Joe Montana. To me, that's like WTF, people. Can we just move on right now? That is seriously just insane. To even put that out there, it makes no sense to me. So let's take a look at what happened around the league. Well, again, Seattle was beat big time, and they just can't seem to close out games when they need to. So they were beaten by the Rams and 23-16, and so now they're 6-3. So no, they are not undefeated. Who's undefeated? We are. I'm going to keep saying that because I love hearing the sound of that. Arizona Bills game. Oh my goodness. So when everybody talks about Kyler Murray and this kid, and you can never at the end of the game leave them enough time. He had 11 seconds. And what's known as the Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary, he went through one, and he just, talk about a bucket into DeAndre Hopkins. The thing that I cannot believe he caught that ball. He had 3 defenders around him. But the WTF on this for the Bills was there was 11 seconds left. The only play was a Hail Mary into the end zone. Why were their defensive backs just all over the field? Get into the end zone. You know that if DeAndre Hopkins is back there, he's going to catch it. And so there should have been 6 guys covering him. So you guys get a WTF for that. And thank you, Arizona. You get a yay for beating an AFC team. 32-30. We really appreciate that. That was at the buzzer. The Patriots. Oh, I can't believe. I actually feel like I needed a shower after really asking them to, or at least praying for them to beat the Ravens. And it was a monsoon. Did you see that game? It was a monsoon rain game. And I love those kind of games where it's snowy, where there's weather. I just think those kind of games I think they're just cool to watch. Kind of breaks up the monotony since we don't really have a lot of fans right now in the stands. But they went from 3-5 to 4-5. So they're kind of coming up. And then they beat the Ravens. And so that was awesome. And that, again, is in our division. So thank you, Patriots. Then now we're 3.5 games ahead of them since we beat them in our head-to-head, which makes Thanksgiving game extremely important. So now the Ravens are 6-3. But, I think for me, the WTF is how many media pundits were trying to give a pass to Lamar Jackson and just kept talking about just how amazing he was and the poor guy in the rain and everything. Can you believe if that was Ben, they'd be like, well, he's old and he can't play in weather and he can't get it done. But when they talk about anybody but Ben, it's all excuses. So I just, you know what? He lives in his fears. So let's just go with that. Colts over Titans 34-17, and that was actually a great game to watch, both because they are now both 6-3, but also because we beat the Titans, so now we need a win over the Colts, and so there just won't be any controversy when it comes to wild cards or anything like that, and we play Indianapolis on December 27th, week 16, so I'm looking forward to that. You know, Phillip Rivers, but he doesn't have a lot of weapons like Ben does, and so that's going to be a different ball game for sure. Bucks. Okay, of course, Tom Brady came back over the Panthers 46-23. Do I care? No. For me, it's, you know what? WTF, of course you did. You can't have 2 bad games in a row. But again, they look at that number because that's what they do out there is they inflate that number, and they still gave up 23 points, but good for Tom Brady, you know? And then the WTF for me is you've heard those multiple reports about Antonio Brown again. Yeah, remember him? Yes, apparently he beat up some kind of a bike and a video camera because he didn't like his HOA rules for wherever he lives in his gated community. And I guess the Bucks knew about this incident a week before he was signed, and it was a month ago, and he's been living with Tom Brady for 3 weeks now and not doing on the field what I think they thought he was going to do. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works out, but that boy still has anger issues. So all I can say is, Bruce Arians, you said you weren't going to sign him. WTF, what were you thinking? So whatever, we've moved on from that for sure. Giants beat the Eagles 27-17. I think that probably hurt a lot of people when it came to their bets. I think a lot of people thought the Eagles were gonna win that. But can you believe that Philadelphia is still number 1 in the NFC East at 3-5-1? It is crazy to me. You can have only 3 wins and you still are in first place. That's just, talk about a weak division. That is crazy. Jags and Packers. So Jaguars were actually in it. They lost 24-20 and they're a 1-8 team now, but they were actually in it to the end. But they also had their backup quarterbacks, which I'll get to in a bit, since we're going to see them again because Gardner Minshew has a thumb issue. But they were in it to the end, but they're 1-8. We're going to see them soon, and that's something that I'm kind of interesting to see how that's all going to work out. Saints 49ers. Okay, here's my WTF for the week. And this is because for those of you that haven't heard my podcasts before or haven't heard me talk about medical, I'm like the quasi-medical professional for the Steel City Underground. And when anybody has injuries or anything on our team, and luckily this season we've been pretty injury-free, virtually I should say injury-free. I haven't had to write up too many things. But the thing that everybody's saying is poor Drew Brees, because he's got multiple rib fractures. He's got a punctured lung and a collapsed lung now, and they're saying it was from the game he was just in. Well, yes, the game he was just in against the 49ers, which ended up being 27-13, was where he got hit a few times. But this boy, I don't know what's gotten into him. I love how humble Ben is. He never goes out on the field to try to get stats or to try to bulk up his resume for the Hall of Fame. It just naturally happens because he's trying to make people around him better, win the game for his team. But that's not who Drew Brees is. He is all about what he does for his stats, in my opinion, because he was already hurt. He already had a rib fracture. He already had an injury to his lung, and he went out there and made it worse. And how dangerous that was, obviously, because now he's got multiple rib fractures on both sides. But for those of you that don't know, if you have a cracked rib and then you get hit on that, it's like a splinter. That cracked rib can then puncture a lung, which it did. And to me, that's a WTF, what the football stupidity on his part. So I hope he recovers and I hope he gets better soon, but he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks because of just not playing smart football and trying to make it about himself and not about the team. They've got Jameis Winston back there. They've got that other guy that they play a lot of time as a wide receiver and in a wildcat formation. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but they can make things work. So I really have a hard time when somebody does that. And, some people think, oh, that's toughness. No, that's not toughness. That's putting your team in a really bad situation, because if you would have rested those ribs that going into that game were fine or just slightly injured, you could have been back in 2 weeks, but now it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. And that's hurting your team. So WTF on that one. The Jets finally did not lose a game this week. Well, they were on a bye. That's my WTF for them. So Jets are still 0-8, 0-8, 0-9. So they're still undefeated on the other side, where basically they have not won a game. So that's where the Jets are. The Browns are 10-7, but this was such a weird game because they had Chubb back, which is their running back. And he basically, they said that everybody's anointing him like the next second coming because he did what Todd Gurley didn't. And as far as he broke free for a run, went 59 yards and stepped out of bounds instead of scoring, because then they get the ball back and all they had to do was take 2 knees. But the thing that if he really wasn't going for stats, then he should have just got the first down and then stopped inbounds and let the clock run down. But everybody's going for stats. No, he didn't go for the touchdown. And I hear somebody in Vegas lost $100,000 because the point spread was 4 and they only won by 3. But, stay in bounds. I mean, that's what's going to, take time off the clock. So yes, it was, okay, it was a play, but let's just call it what it is. Get the first down, stop what you're doing, and it just keeps going. So anyway, it's just funny when people don't look at the big picture and take a look at that. I'm always like, okay, what the football on that, people? So let's get to the Steelers game. I like to close out with the Steelers because it makes me happy. So yes, we are 9-0, but let's put it this way. I'm not excited about our run game. So I realize that, I probably disagree here with our fearless leader, Joe Kuzma. But, this is the 3rd game in a row that the Steelers have failed to rush more than 48 yards since Chuck Nolan, 1969. And, okay, I'm not just whining because I have Connor on my fantasy league. Okay, I'm whining a little bit about that. I'm definitely I'm saying what WTF on that. But come on, we definitely need to figure out our run game. Actually, in the presser with Tomlin on Tuesday, so Tomlin Tuesday, he was also saying that he feels that they aren't doing a good job with the run game. So at least I was a little bit vindicated there, and he said they're going to be talking about that. But they kept sending James out wide, and he was getting a loss every single time. So every time they sent him out, he was losing 2 to 3 yards. And it's just like, if that's not working, stop doing that. So they need to kind of figure that out a little bit. But what about Juju? He has just been such a selfless, amazing wide receiver for us. He's going to be 24 this weekend. And he's younger than my daughter, and he converted three third downs, and one was a touchdown for him. They need to sign him. I realize everybody wants to sign everybody in the universe, and we've got TJ Watt, we've got Bud Dupree, we've got a lot of people that it would be great to keep. But I think Juju is one of them. We need to keep him on the team. I mean, to me, to allow him to walk, he is a Pittsburgh guy. He is the face of the franchise. And just his communication, his chemistry with Ben is just amazing. And I really hope we can keep him for a while. I know it's tough where everything is very money oriented to be able to keep a wide receiver that long, but boy, I really hope we can sign him and keep him. So we finally, and this to me was a great what the football is, we finally got some roughing the passer calls on Ben. It only took 17 years. They were basically never calling them because they just said he was too big to bring down. But you know what? He really needed to get those calls, and he actually got some of those. So we really liked that. Now, talking about where we're headed for Jaguars. So Doug Marrone said that quarterback Gardner Minshew the mustache. He won't be ready to face the Steelers on Sunday. So it will probably be their backup, Jake Luton. He's lost his last 2 starts to the Texans and to Green Bay. But here's the big WTF. I wonder if they'll pull a bait and switch. Who do you think is the backup to the backup on the Jags? Yes, it's Mike Glennon. Remember him? So he is our kryptonite. He beat us in 2014 when he was with Tampa as a backup. He beat us in 2017 as a backup with the Bears. And let's just not go there. So let's hope that nobody remembers that and they stick with the rookie, Luton. But you know what? We need to be ready to go no matter what. Our defense is going to have to continue to be opportunistic, taking away big plays and turnovers. And, Cam Sutton, oh my goodness, he has had an interception in the last 3 games. And that boy, and he's just been great, and forced a turnover, and so we just really appreciate him. Joe Hayden's playing amazing, obviously, TJ Watt, but our whole defense has just really stepped up. But we need to be more than just opportunistic. We need to stop the other team from scoring points, and if we can do that, like we did this week at 36-10 win, then we're going to be good to go against the Jaguars and get into double digits as far as keeping perfect. I like what our coach said in his press conference this week, where he basically said the only thing perfect about us is our record. So he always knows there's room for improvement. There's always something you can learn from every week. And let's hope that we've learned it now that we have to go on the road again. We've had 3 road games, only 1 home game in the last 4, and we're on the road again. So let's make it a good one. And thank you for listening to the Steel City Underground podcast, the WTF this week. And let's get to 10-0. All right, everybody, make it a great day.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.